The opinions and views expressed in this video do not reflect the views of HTT Media Group. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, let me pull my feet up so that I know I'm doing this right. Okay. Just bear with me just 1 second. So tonight's episode is a little different, obviously. This is one that I thought long and hard about. It's one of those things that I'm really nervous about because I don't like being vulnerable. Okay. Hold on, let me turn that down. Okay. So, welcome everybody. I talked to the other guys and we kind of had a conversation about where we wanted to go with this. And here's the first thing you need to understand. Monetization is turned off for this show. Do not send any gifts, anything like that. That's not what this is about. This isn't a plea. This isn't us talking about anything in the community. This is literally me coming to you as a human, and hopefully some of the things I talk about tonight will help somebody. I know that there are a lot of people in the world right now going through stuff, and that's what I want to do. Is I want to take a brief moment to actually sit down and help people. That's what this was started for. So let me tell you right off the bat a little bit about me. So, and I said that I was going to tell I would start from the beginning. So I did not have any different life than anybody else. I grew up with very loving parents. I grew up with great brothers and sisters. I have two brothers. Sorry, I don't know why. Well, I do have three brothers, and I'll explain that later. But one of them is not by blood, but he might as well be. And then I have a sister. I am the youngest of four children, and I grew up, like I said, my life has never been any different than anybody else's. My mother and father, have always worked. My brothers and sisters, they're great people. one owns a business, they do all kinds of stuff. They're great people. But I grew up in a very loving home, and I'm extremely thankful for that. I was a little weird when I was in school. I didn't think like other people did. I would have a thought, and this is some people. I would have a thought, and I would think that thought was more important than any other thing in the world. Like, that thought drove me to have another thought and another thought and another thought. And I would continuously have, my brain would go a million miles a minute. And eventually I would turn back around, and that thought that I thought was so important would be completely gone. So I grew up, and I thank you. Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I grew up in a Christian home. My family, all of us, we love the Lord Jesus, and that is a big staple of my life. And like I said in my post today on my personal page, there is going to be some spirituality in this show. So if you don't like it, please turn. But it's not going to be all of it. But you have to understand something. And I'm going to say this so that I can help you understand. Without Jesus in my life, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Every step that I've made in my life and tried to turn the wrong direction, he has always brought me back. And I always tell my mom and dad this, he's always 10 steps ahead of me. So, I started going to church at a young age, and I didn't know much about church or God or anything like that. I mean, I knew about what my mother and father told me about him, and that was all cool. But I really started going because my middle brother, Justin, who owns a coffee shop here in town, he started going. And by the way, no names are going to be used in this show to protect the innocent. So we started going to a local church, and I was very involved in what they call RAs, which is at that church is called Royal Ambassadors. It's a program for the children to kind of learn about God and Jesus and stuff like that. So really early on, I had a big dose of religion in my heart. I accepted Christ. Well, let me take this back. I accepted Christ when I was 10 years old. Was baptized at 11, and I really thought that I had this passion, like I wanted to tell everybody about what happened to me because I wanted everybody to know. And so I did, man. I went out and I told people, and I let everybody know. And it was exciting, and it was invigorating, and I was like, yes, I'm doing what I came here to do. Like, so much that, at 11 years old, I had made, and so that's what fashioned the nickname to me at that point was Brother John. People started calling me Brother John. And so it's so much that I put it on the back of my Letterman jacket. But stay tuned because there's a catch to that. So I ended up, I remember one of my favorite times was I got out of that and I started getting into youth, and I had an amazing youth minister. The man taught me so much about who God really was. And I got excited in middle school. That fire was there. And so I met another guy. He was actually one of my teachers. And I tell you this today, those two men are a big part of who I am today. because I still remember the lessons that they taught me. But so we had this thing called Fish, okay? And Fish was I guess you would call it it's kind of like a ministry tool. So it took 4 weeks to complete this whole thing. And it was like, I think I even remember. So it was an acronym. It stood for fellowship, and then inspiration, service, and I think homecoming was the last one. But anyways, so basically it was an evangelical tool, which if you don't know what that means it's something that helps somebody tell somebody about Jesus. Okay. So we did this 4-week program, and this was me and this teacher, trying to get the gospel out in the schools. And I got to stand up at the homecoming one, because that was the big thing, is kind of Fish. So you put your bait out there, you let them know about it, and then you bring them back in. And so I remember I was so nervous to get up there in front of my peers and talk about Jesus. And, this is middle school, so this is the time where, things are happening, and you're starting to get different ideas, and there are girls, and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be a nerd, but I did it. And I remember sitting there and just giving the simple message of the gospel. And one of my buddies that was in high school, he played some music, and we did an invitation. And I remember that day because 40 kids that day came to know Jesus as their personal Savior. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not gloating about that, because that was all God. Okay? But I was so excited. And at that point, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to grow up, I was going to get in ministry, and I was going to become a preacher, because that's where I wanted to be. This is where the story changes. I got into high school. And I was always the person, and I always have been the person, that needed to be loved. And I found this thing in my life that most guys find at that age, and it's called girls. There were a couple in particular. But I kind of, it was a catch-22, because I had a really bad problem with self-identity. I did not think I looked good. I did not think that, I thought I was trash. I thought I was ugly. And why would a girl ever talk to me? My wife says, yeah, you can comment. It's fine. My wife says he didn't look my way. That's true, and I'm sorry. But I did finally. Anyway, so I got into high school with that same drive and that same mentality. Got into CIA, which is, if you don't know what CIA is Christians in Action. It was all about God, but I'm going to tell you this now. It really wasn't. I was living a lie. I was trying to teach these people around me about Jesus and about how loving and forgiving he is and how faithful he is, and how if they turn away from their sin, everything will be forgiven. But in the same breath, I wasn't living that life. Sorry. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I didn't live that life. Mostly every day. And when I look back, when I look at my life in general from that point of view, that was one of my deepest regrets, is that I wasn't authentic. And so, something happened though. And this is where the story kind of changes. Because as I grew older, I was in football. I wasn't very good. I was in powerlifting. I was okay. And I did sports. That was a big thing in the Marble household, is you played sports. My brothers played football and baseball. I think one of them did shot put or discus or something in track and field. One of them was in powerlifting. Like, we were a sports family. And so, I love to sing. It's one of my passions. And I'm okay at it, I guess. People have told me that. I'm not too sure. So I would sneak out of, well, I wouldn't sneak out. I actually talked to I sneak out. I'd talk to my, because third block back in the day, we had athletics. It's when we did special teams and stuff like that. And so I would sneak out and go to choir. And there's a special lady. Actually, there's two special ladies. No, I'm a man and Tiger Woodall, who's passed away. Terry Woodall, we called him Tiger. And then, believe it or not, the curator for the Ice House Museum, Miss Susan Kilcrease, was my choir teacher. And I learned a lot of my passion from her, because she had a major passion for teaching kids music. And so I did, and I studied, and I studied the music and stuff like that, and I was so happy because I finally got to do something that I was happy about. And then, like I said, I progressed through high school. I wasn't I kind of just hung out with everybody. I wasn't in a certain group. I had my friends, and I had people who I really cared about, but I really didn't hang out with just a set group, and the reason I did that is because in the Bible, Paul talks about being all things to all people. So I took that literally. And so I tried to become all things to all people. I tried to be that person for everybody. And so here's where everything stopped. Graduation. I graduated high school, and I was going to be a preacher. That was my thing. But God had other plans. So I went to, and at this time my heart was growing. Things inside of me were indifferent, because I was seeing truth for what truth actually was. And I've come to learn that when you read your Bible, that's what happens. But so, let's see. I went to church, not the Sunday after graduation, but the next Sunday. And I remember sitting, normally at our church, we always sit in the front pews. But I didn't this time. And I remember sitting in the back pews that day. And I looked around, and I looked at all of the people in this church. And it hurt, because I knew that those people were hurting. Some of them were. Some of them had lost loved ones. Some of them were going through affliction. Some of these people were hurting, and all of them were sitting there with a smile on their face, acting like nothing ever happened. And I was like, why is everybody in here so fake? And then God, in his 10 steps ahead of me, snapped his fingers and said, why are you? Why are you? Because you're just like them. For years, you've been living in this facade of neatness, claiming to be someone you're not. So, John, here's the question. Why are you being just like them? And if anything in my life had ever stopped me in its tracks, it was that moment. So, I left the church. And honestly, a big part of me was, which this was not of God, but a part of me held resentment for the church for a long time in my heart. Wouldn't go back, wouldn't grace the doors, wouldn't even talk to any of the church members. Like, I was done. So I went on with my life, and you're going to see a trend here in a minute. I started actually caring about what I love to do, my passion, which was singing. And so I went to college for a little while. I was in the music business program. Didn't work out. So had a couple of odd jobs, and then I went to construction. In fact, there's a man here who's watching this show right now who got me my first job. My first job was at Chicago Bridge and Iron, and it was, I ran a weed eater. Not my first job, but my first construction job. And did pretty much, maintenance. Chance Hill, and I said I wouldn't name names, but Chance, I always wanted to tell you thank you for that day. I appreciate that. But yeah, he got me the job, and talked to another good person in my life who really helped me out, who really steered me away from trouble. But so I had money, and so I got into the things that money, obviously lets you get into, which is alcohol, not drugs. And I'm going to tell you, one of the blessings of my life is that I've never really been involved in drugs. And for those who are struggling with that addiction, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. All of us are here. But yeah, that was something that I never got into. I was just always so scared of it, But I did start drinking alcohol. I hung out with people who drank alcohol, and which, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that alcohol is bad. I still have a couple drinks every now and then. I don't overdo it anymore, and there's a reason why. But so one of the ways that I was able to live my passion, because I was outside of college and I couldn't sing anymore, so I started doing karaoke with my buddy, David, on the show, if you know David. And we would go everywhere. We were doing karaoke 5 out of the 7 nights a week. And we were doing it so much that we actually started helping out, like set up and tear down the equipment, and helping out Royce and Julia and all them. By the way, shout out to them. They're great people. The DJing and stuff around here and all this stuff, I'd have never known how to do it if it wasn't for those guys. And so we did that, and I did it for a long time. 5, maybe 6, 7 years. Met amazing people along the way. People that don't grace the doors of churches. Met a lot of bad people, but met some really cool people. And so I'm thankful for that part of my life. But there was still this desire at that point. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm lonely. I mean, I don't have a girlfriend. I had girlfriends in the past. All of them were great, but it just didn't work out. And so I was looking for one of the biggest parts of my life is that I always wanted to be a husband. I always thought that was part of my life that was just going to happen. And I wanted to be really good at it. Spoiler alert, I'm not. But so I met a girl who I had a very, very big crush on in high school. And we dated for a while and ended up getting married. And this part is where the hard part comes in. So, ended up getting married. She had an amazing little girl. And through circumstances that were beyond our control, after about 2.5 years, we decided that we would separate. And I had to walk away from everything. That killed me. And almost literally did. So for those of you who have gone through a divorce or have gone through a broken relationship, you understand that, things get in your mind. And the devil tries to wear you thin. And so the devil tried that to me. He started with lies of deceit, telling me that I was no good, telling me that, well, there's a reason that this happened. Like you're not good enough, and you'll never be good enough, and you're ugly, and you're stupid, and you're dumb, and just all these things that he just put in my head, and it got so bad that I started believing them. I started actually believing that I was no good, that I was ridiculous, that I was stupid, that I wasn't worth it. Because why would I be? If I wasn't, I'd still be married. And it got to the point to where in my lowest point, I started abusing alcohol really bad. Luckily, I will make this a testament to. I've always had friends, Chance, David, Adam Robbins, people like that who've always stood in my corner, who said, "Hey man, you're better than this." And luckily, those people were there to pick me up whenever I fell. But in my darkest hour, I tried to take my life. And if it wasn't for a call and a text from two separate people, I would not be here today. And it was simply, that's why we, and on the show so badly, we talk about the simplest thing can change somebody's life, because the call was, "Hey bro, what's up?" And the text was, "Hey man, what are you doing tonight?" From two different people. That's all it took to save my life. So after that, I didn't really have a lot going on. I had a job. I was working. Actually, I always tell people that, no, I didn't have a job, because my life that year was like a really bad country song. I think I'd lost my dog that year. I lost my wife. I lost my truck got stolen in Beaumont, and I lost my job because of Hurricane Harvey. So my life sucked in 2017. In the worst way. But one of the things that I've always come back to is no matter what happens, what did I say at the beginning? God is always 10 steps ahead of me. So I had left for a while, and I had moved to Mid-County. It was about 6 months. It was a bad decision. This was before I was married the first time. And I remember something that somebody said whenever, because I was homeless at that time pretty much. Like, I was living there, but, didn't have any money. Basically, I was living at a buddy's cousin's house, but I remember that cousin saying something to me. He looked at me in the face one day and he said, "Hey, you can always go home." And so I remembered those words whenever what happened. And so I came home. I came back to Silsbee, Texas, who everybody else said, "I want to get out of here so bad." But I was dying and I was thirsting to come back. And what happened? The people that I knew, the people in this community, welcomed me back with open arms. So I had a friend at the time who always checked in on me. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. I would ghost her. I would talk to her maybe once every 6 months, and it would probably be only like one text. But she did check in on me all the time. So her mother happened to own a coffee shop here. Well, I would go up to her mother's coffee shop because I like coffee, and one of the things I love to do is sit and read. So I was so excited one day. I was talking to her, and I was telling her, and me and her mother, we became friends. Because she would listen to me rant about my problems, I would listen to her rant about hers, and so we had that, relationship where we would just talk back and forth over coffee. And she would always tell me, "Hey, my daughter's single." And I'd be like, yeah, passing it on. Well, so one night I was sitting at the house not doing anything, and that girl happened to text and said, "Hey," or no, I think I messaged her. And I was like, "Hey, I need somebody to talk to," because I was getting really depressed. By the way, through all of this situation, my depression did come out. So I just wanted to make that aware. I do suffer from anxiety and depression. It's been a thing my whole life, but it just came out because of what happened. I guess it kind of leveled up. I guess that's what the therapist said. So, anyways, but so I was really depressed that night. I needed somebody to talk to. So I went over to her place and I just vented all night. Surprisingly enough to me, so did she. And she let me know exactly how she felt about me. That she had liked me since high school. That one of the reasons that not the only reason, but one of the reasons she went to LSU was because she thought I was going to go to LSU. And that she deeply cared for me. And it kind of blew me away. So, what does John do at this point when he finds out a girl actually really cares about him? I ran away. But there's an event that happens next that makes me realize how powerful the love of God is and how much He cares about our lives. So, unfortunately, and I don't know if she wants me to tell this on air. I know it's public fact, but unfortunately, her mother passed away through just some stuff that happened. And I didn't know about it. I was actually, and the weird thing is the night before, so it was Black Friday, and I didn't want to be messed with, so I had bought 2 books, and I was going to go up to the coffee shop and I was going to read those books and I was going to drink coffee all day and just chill out while all you other crazy people were out running around trying to buy the latest gift. And she was like, yeah, I'll be there. I'll open at 8 or 7 or something like that. Come on. And I was like, okay, cool. So I show up, the door's locked and everything. Don't know what's going on. So I messaged the other barista. She doesn't know what's going on. So that's when we ended up finding out that she had passed away that morning. Here's the kicker. So I drove up there because this is my friend. I want to console her, right? I drove up there and I saw her sister and I said, hey, is your sister here? I want to talk to her, try to console her. She says she's not here right now. She's with my father. And I said, okay. So I left the parking lot and I got home and something in the back of my mind said, turn around, go back. And I drove back down there, and as I pulled into the parking lot, her dad and her had just shown up. And I grabbed her, and we went out to the gazebo right here in downtown Silsbee. By the way, that's one of the reasons that this particular place in this town means so much to me, because that's where I met my future wife, who I love and is my best friend. And in a funny way, her mother got exactly what she wanted. And that was for me and her to be together. But that day, I walked up to her and I stood by her side, and I guarantee you this. Since then, we've never left each other's side. Ever. So, and the funny thing is, this is after a divorce. This is after everything that's happened. I was not looking for a wife. I was not looking for anybody at that time. That's why when she told me about her feelings for me at the beginning, I jetted, because I didn't want that. That wasn't on my priority list. I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to live it and forget everybody else. But that is not how God works. After that, we got married, and I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life, because obviously I wasn't becoming a preacher anymore. I wasn't Brother John anymore. So what am I going to do? I had made a promise when I came home that I would do everything in my power, everything in my being, to help our community grow. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking with David Collins, who is one of my other best friends growing up, and I'm talking to him about this crazy idea that we could, everybody's making podcasts, everybody's making Facebook Live talk show things now. Let's do it. Why not? I mean, what do we have to lose? And we had talked about this for a long time. 10 years or so, but we never actually went through with it. And then finally, somebody kicked us in the rear end and said, hey, stop talking about it and just go do it. And so I come home to my wife and I'm telling her all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening, but we need a name for it, and I don't have a name for it, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I said something, and she said something back, and I said, you know what, so here's the thing. And she goes, boom, there it is. There's the name of your show. So here's the thing. And I looked at her and I was like, well, how does that make any sense? And she said, because when you're about to give a compelling argument, that's the first words out of your mouth. And I started thinking about it. I was like, you're right. So we started with So Here's the Thing. And then we added other shows. And everything was going great. Except for one problem. I did not and still do not know how to run a business. And so that was a big issue. And so I was able to figure out through YouTube videos and stuff. I don't have an audio engineering degree. And the guys, Zach and Aaron over at A to Z podcast and other podcasts around the area, I would call them and ask them questions. Say, hey, how do you do this? Hey, how do you do this? And then we started getting donations. We got an old computer system from a school district that wasn't using it anymore. And we got, and then we got some people in the business, and they started adding stuff in the business. And then we were like, oh my gosh. And so we started it in his home. And then we went to Justin and Adrian Marble, my brother and sister-in-law, had started their coffee shop, Frenchies. And so we were like, hey, can we use your space to do our show? And they're like, absolutely. And so we started over there where the pet grooming place is now. And then right after that, when Justin and Adrian got the new coffee shop here at 195 East Avenue H, we built a studio in their back room, what was essentially a shoe closet. And it was hot and it was muggy in there, but we made it work. I literally put the HVAC vents into the room and made it work. And then we were like, okay, well, we need to upgrade. And so we were talking to Justin and Adrian. We're like, hey, because they've been so giving to us over the last 3 years. And so we're like, hey, can we use that back part of your room to build a brand new studio, a state-of-the-art studio, if you will? And they were like, yeah. And so we did. And now I'm sitting here looking at this room, and I'm going to tell you, guys, if you don't believe that my story starts and is going to end with Jesus Christ, you're wrong. Because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to do this without him. And it's amazing to me. And I do get emotional. And I do get angry. And I do, because I want my city so bad to get better. And I do have passion. And you can call me a cynic, and you can call me a complainer, or whatever you want to, and I don't care, because I'm telling you right now, I was born in this city, I will die in this city, but before I do, I will be one of the ones that helps fix this city. And it'll all start with good people who have the best interest putting their heads together and making it right. All the wrongs need to be righted. That's what needs to happen. I love this community. There are people in this town that I love to death. Most of them. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm a human. There are people I just don't like. But I can tell you this, every step of the way, everything that has happened in my life, I can tell you, not to sound cliche, but he has been my God through all of it. And that is the reason that I am still standing. I want to thank you all for watching this. I know that this is weird, it's mundane, and you're like, why in the world would we want to hear John Marble's story? And I get it, but I hope that there are people out there that, like I said, no monetization on this. Do not send us a dime. If you do, I will send it back. What I'm telling you is this. I did this because there's somebody out there who is hurting right now. There's somebody out there who needs inspiration. And I'm telling you right now, hold on to Jesus. I'm not perfect by any means. I never have been. But I love you guys. And coming from a guy who used to say that a lot in his younger years and didn't know what the word love means. Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you real quick. So later in my life, I told you that I got saved at 10 years old, baptized at 11. Later in my life, I actually rededicated my life to Jesus. I was about 17 years old, and that's when I really felt it. I love this community. I love getting to sit out here and sing the Pines Theater outside my window. For all of you who've ever had a part in raising me up, to my family, to my mother and father, who are amazing people in some of the biggest parts of my life, thank you. HTT Entertainment does not happen without our community. And I don't speak for all of us, but I will speak for me. Well, no, I'll speak for all of us. As a community, we love you. We thank you. And thank you so much for being the best part of HTT Entertainment. God bless you, and good night.